Let's get into it. And, Jay, we can put a smile on for Bailey Zappe. But before that, the NFL playoffs, guys, are almost here. But it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can finish the season strong, stronger than the Browns, with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many ways for you guys to pick up a W. You can pick which players score a touchdown, how many points each team will score, and so much more. Just visit FanDuel.com/UCSS/locked-on to join today, not UCSS. This way, you don't miss on any of the biggest games of the year. FanDuel.com/locked-on for your chance at $250 in bonus bets.
All right, let's talk Bailey Zappe.
That'll all get us going.
Zappe New Year.
Zappe New Year is right.
Yeah.
40th quarterback to start for the Browns.
Yeah.
Do we know what the next highest number for any other team is over the last 25 years?
I saw it was the Bears. I forget the exact number.
The Bears
but
have gone through a lot, too.
More than 40 since 99. I think the stat that jumps out at me, this is 9 in the last 2 years. It's the most ever in a 2-year span.
Yeah.
And it's one thing if you don't have a quarterback or you don't think you have a quarterback. Well, the Browns are paying a ton of money to a guy they think is the guy, or they thought could be the guy at one point. And to go through 9 quarterbacks when you're paying one of those $230 million, it's just hard to swallow.
So it's 9 in the last 2 years, but we know Watson and DTR are carryovers.
Right, so it's 7 different guys.
That, to me, that is the lost in the forest stat. That in the last 2 years, you've used 7 different starting quarterbacks.
Yeah.
That is, it's got to be an NFL record, guys. It has to be.
I would think.
7 different quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a complete change of the quarterback room. Complete change.
And then one.
3 in, 3 new ones, and then an additional one, and we had 2 carryovers.
There's got to be teams that haven't used 7 since '99.
You're probably right.
There's probably a couple.
Well, Pittsburgh, New England, those.
Yeah, or
come to
even
mind.
if it's more than 7, it can't be more than like 10. I mean, New England. Yeah, New England. You said Green Bay. How many have they?
Green
used?
Bay's probably the best example.
Probably. I mean, you think Favre had his long run, and immediately followed by Rodgers, immediately followed by Love. I don't know that there probably were times
Called
where
the Malik Willis start here and there.
guys came in emergency starts,
Yeah.
but it really, to me, I think when you figure out the quarterback position, and that's the conundrum for every NFL team.
Yeah.
I think the measure of a franchise is coach and quarterback. And where more has there been stability at both than Pittsburgh, when you think about it?
Yeah.
Now, I know recently they've sort of been kicking the can on that.
Sure.
They haven't found their guy since Roethlisberger. And Russell Wilson, although he's a temporary fix, he's not the long-term permanent guy.
No.
But that's an organization that you can look at and say they're the Tiffany organization. They're run the way. And then you look at the antithesis of that is the Browns with all the coaches and all the quarterbacks.
Right.
They can't figure anything out.
Yeah, if you have both, you're a great team. If you have one of the two, you're in good shape.
You have a chance to be a great team.
If you don't have either, you're screwed.
And that's kind of where we are. Does everybody agree that Bailey Zappe was the right call? Because I do strongly agree. I was calling for Bailey Zappe against Miami. I've seen enough of DTR.
To me, I don't think anything of either guy, so it doesn't really matter. I guess it's fine. I mean, outside of the one game against the Browns, he hasn't done. He's got more turnovers than touchdowns in his career, in his brief
12
career
to 11, yeah.
So, but he did play great against the Browns. I think that's probably the only really good game he played. I don't know. I mean, Bailey Zappe's not going to be the answer. I'm fine watching him play. I can't imagine he's going to do much of anything. I mean, how many reps does he have with these guys? You have no Jerome Ford.
Yeah.
You have no David Njoku. Your best corner, Denzel Ward's not playing this week. So, I mean, I don't know how they have a chance to compete.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
But I know this. I've seen enough of DTR.
Yeah, I agree.
You know when you see it, you know whether there's something there or there's nothing there.
There's nothing there.
There's nothing there.
Yeah,
I hate to say it. What does he have? 2 touchdowns to 10 interceptions?
No, he's one of 5 quarterbacks ever to have 10 interceptions and 1 or fewer touchdowns.
That's
in the history of the league.
Yeah, that's crazy.
5 quarterbacks ever have done
we
that.
definitely and really at halftime of the Dolphins game, I had said to the folks that we were with, I said, I'm fine with Bailey Zappe in the second half. Here's the thing. He's not going to come out and tear we don't think, and tear the Ravens defense apart. But what if he does?
Well, here's what I'm kind of looking at this game in a big picture scenario as. Maybe, and I wouldn't say I feel good about this by any means, but maybe there's a chance Bailey Zappe shows you enough that you bring him back to compete for that backup quarterback spot next year.
That's exactly the reason to bring him back.
And that's a giant if.
But you know what it would take? It would take a 400-yard, 4-touchdown performance where he completed 75% of his passes.
Basically what he did to the Browns when he was New England's quarterback.
Maybe even more. If it's so eye-popping that you can't ignore it. If it's mid, bye.
Goodbye.
Thanks for playing. Let's move the bus again and see what we can do for next year. But at this point, the best of the three quarterbacks is clearly Jameis Winston. I think the real question is, do they bring him back? I think that is the real question.
I was reading Albert Breer's column yesterday, and he was, I don't know if advocating is the right word, but maybe suggesting Kirk Cousins is the answer for the Browns next year.
Jeremy Fowler's also hinted at that pretty heavily now, multiple times.
Kirk Cousins this year looked like he's toast.
Yeah.
I guess it's possible, a full year after the Achilles tear that maybe he'd still be good.
What is Kirk, 38?
But he's old, yeah. I don't know exactly, but yeah,
He's been around.
I think I think Brady playing great into his mid-40s made you think like other guys maybe now could do that. No. But the LeBrons and the Tom Bradys of the world are one of a kind. Yeah. Like most quarterbacks, by the time they get to 38, it's over.
Well, look at Aaron Rodgers. I think he's the oldest player in the league right now.
Yeah.
And Rodgers said after he injured Achilles last year that when he came back, he thought he could play another 5 years. Well, it's because we're all fooled by Tom Brady's one-of-one status.
Yeah.
And we all thought, well, I mean, here's a guy that doesn't put sugar into his body. Right, I mean, nobody should be surprised that he had a longer than average career.
Right.
The fact that it went into his 45 or 46th year is stunning.
Yeah.
But you're right.
Yeah.
Nobody can,
No, even Peyton Manning in his last year when they won the Super Bowl, he was carried the end of that season.
Yeah, he was not good.
I mean, he was going off the cliff.
They won it in spite of him, which you never thought you'd say.
Yeah, I mean, but so, like, it's just it. I mean, so I guess if they want to, have Kirk Cousins instead of Jameis next year as a bridge or whatever, I mean, I think one thing I think we'd all agree on is whether the Browns draft a quarterback this year or whether it ends up being next year, they have to do something that they've essentially never done, at least not since I've been here, and I can't think of when they've ever done this. They have to let that young quarterback watch and not rush him in. Because the Browns, I'm not saying any of them would have been any good, and, but most of these quarterbacks outside of Baker were put in there before they were ready to play and had no chance. Now, maybe they wouldn't have been any good anyway, all these guys.
Right. But. Are you guys, either of you, losing a little confidence in Kevin Stefanski when it comes to how he handles quarterbacks?
Oh,
because
100%.
I have lost a lot. I think his cash. DTR's going to play too? What's that? Why?
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
I don't think you could look at anything we've seen this season in particular and feel good about what Kevin Stefanski has done from a head coaching standpoint. And this is coming from someone who thinks, for the most part, Kevin Stefanski's been a pretty good head coach and's had a terrible 2024 season. But we talk about Kevin Stefanski. He get the best out of all his quarterbacks, right? Bull, you mentioned this the other week. If you go through the list of quarterbacks, the only guy he's really gotten the best out of was Brissett, who was good enough but not great, and then Flacco, who threw a ton of touchdowns and got picks. The other
you
guys,
can only say that about he got the best out of Flacco in this end of Flacco's career, not the best of his career.
But in the stretch where he was at, like,
I guess.
Look at the other guys. It's not as good as I think we thought it was on paper.
And you know what's funny, Mike, is yesterday on the show, I made a big thing because from Jeremy Fowler's article, I said my biggest takeaway, Jay, was that this team is not professional. The organization is not professional.
Yeah.
Right? The Steelers, the reason they are competitive every year is because they're a professionally run organization. There's no Mickey Mouse nonsense in their front office. Yeah. There's no Mickey Mouse nonsense with the coach. And when guys that are talented get to be too much of a pain in the ass, they move on. They did it with Le'Veon Bell. They did it with Antonio Brown. Maybe they'll have to do it with Pickens at some point. I don't know. Because he's. But you could deal with one guy or two guys like that at a time, not a whole bunch of them. And I brought this up because yesterday I heard a quote from a baseball player who said he learned from being on the Brewers how to be a professional. Because the Brewers, in a way, have become like the Steelers. Every year, they're in the mix. Like last year, I thought the Brewers were going to stink.
Yeah.
And they won the division by 10 games. and they didn't do anything in the playoffs, but they're a professional organization. There's a level of professionalism you have to be part of that, and that doesn't exist with the Browns. And the communication in this organization is laughable. And then we saw it again yesterday. Mary Kay gets puts out a report saying Kevin Stefanski's not going to announce the starting quarterback.
Yeah.
It's going to be Zappe or DTR. And then a half hour later, it's going to be Zappe. It's like Kevin Stefanski was trying to keep it a secret, but somebody spilled the beans, and now he's got to say the whole thing.
Yeah.
And it's like these things are always happening with this team. And by the way, why keep it a secret?
Yeah, I don't get that
the
either.
Ravens care who's playing
John
quarterback?
Harbaugh's having nightmares.
Competitive
over that.
disadvantage
I mean,
to announce your quarterback.
Yeah.
That's why I say that Stefanski has done some things this season, but particularly late in the season. I think we're going to talk about this later. Well, you guys might disagree with me, but I just thought, I know he's out there for his guy. Stefanski never takes a stand. Yesterday, he makes a strong statement that Myles Garrett should absolutely be the Defensive Player of the Year. And I just thought, look, I know that that's your guy, but for a guy who never says anything, to go out on that branch, like...
Well, I thought he had to after what Myles said 2 weeks ago about...
Yeah, but listen, you've won 3 games. He's not going to be the Defensive Player of the Year, even if he has been.
And who gives a crap?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. The bigger point to me was, you're worried about that right now?
That's what,
You're worried about that. You have 3 wins on a team that was expected to go to the playoffs. You're a 20-point underdog, and you're talking about your guy should be DPOY?
Yeah. And
Like,
let's face it, Myles Garrett's only playing this week because he wants to win the sack title.
That's it.
Because he's tied with Trey Hendrickson.
And he's never done that.
And he wants to win it. Otherwise, what's the point of him playing? He's been dealing with injuries all year.
None.
The game couldn't be less meaningful. It's better off if they lose in terms of the draft.
Well, when you look at their injury list, this is a tank.
I mean, come on.
I mean, not that they even need to do that.
But, no,
they
I
could
agree.
play everybody,
It's like I don't care about these stupid individual awards, and I also agree that it's absurd that he would win Defensive Player of the Year on a bad team.
You can't do it. You just can't.
That doesn't
That's like
make any sense.
in baseball, an MVP never comes from a team that doesn't make the playoffs.
Almost never.
Almost
The
never.
only time it happened,
Andre Dawson did
but
it when
his
the Cubs,
numbers were so head and shoulders.
Yeah, you couldn't ignore it.
That's the only way you can do it on a bad team.
Did Shohei win it on the Angels?
I think he did.
A couple years ago, yeah.
Yeah,
but he's also the exception.
I think when Andre Dawson won it, I think the Cubs finished last.
They did.
I mean, they were an absolutely abysmal.
Terrible.
So
They were
the
terrible.
comparison is, this is a team that's vying for the number 1 overall draft pick, has a legitimate path to pick first in the draft.
Yes.
Who saw that coming?
Right.
And you're talking about your guy on defense could be the Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah.
Look, I love Myles Garrett. He's had a fantastic season. You can't have a Defensive Player of the Year who comes from a team that won 3 games when they were expected to win double digits.
No.
I kind of disagree.
All right, well, we're going to talk about that later. We're talking about that later. But back to your point, Bill, and I thought it was a good one about the Browns just being a big part of the problem is it's just not a professional organization.
Yeah.
It was a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, when, and by the way, I think they were right at the time when they said this, but Baker Mayfield, we need an adult in the room.
Yeah.
We need an adult in the room.
Yeah.
And 3 years later, this is what you have. You have an organization that looks like they don't have any adults in the room anywhere.
That's right.
And there's so many problems to fix. I was talking to a buddy of mine who used to be in NFL front office, used to evaluate talent for an NFL team. And I said, where would you start with this? And he goes, look, I've seen a lot of reclamations. I've seen a lot of projects where you're like, he calls it whack-a-mole. You fix this problem, but you got 3 over here that are popping up. It's like, I honestly don't know. I don't know what they're doing inside to address this because the offensive line is aging out and underperformed. Mm-hmm. The tight end position, when he's healthy, he's okay sometimes, and sometimes he's average. The wide receiver room, a complete and total disaster.
Except for Jeudy.
Jerry Jeudy, that's it. But here's what you have. Jerry Jeudy has been great with one guy.
Yeah.
And he throws too many interceptions.
Right.
So it's almost like he's Ferrari, but the key doesn't turn in.
His stat line against Miami was hysterical, by the way. Did you guys see, when you actually go back and look at Judy's stat, and pull up Jerry Judy's game stats?
I don't remember it either way.
18, do you know he has 18 targets in that game? Wow. He had 12 catches for 90 yards. His DTR's average that not to derail everything, but It was the most dinky-dunky. Like, just look at this. This is
Yeah.
one of the more funny stat graphics we've made.
Oh my God!
All season. It's almost hard to fathom you have that many targets and receptions for that few yards.
And he's
that
a
average.
speed guy, so
And
him
he's
averaging
exactly.
7.8 yards per reception is not good, and that's DTR's fault, obviously. Jay, you're right. I mean, there's no position group you feel good about. No. We thought the secondary was a huge strength. Outside of Denzel Ward, who are you feeling good about in that secondary?
Emerson has taken a step back.
Newsome, I don't love him.
Delpit has two.
Yeah,
and Thornhill.
Thornhill stinks. Delpit's okay.
Did you guys comment on? I'm sure you did on Bitonio's comment that they're not that far away.
Actually, we did not comment on that.
When I saw that, I thought
we did it more in Miles.
I love Joel. I love him.
Yeah, but
he echoed what Miles said, and when we talked about it when Miles said it, how none of us agreed that they're close.
Well, I guess he just what is he going to say? I guess he doesn't want to say they suck, but
no, I know. But
I mean, you can't feel good. I don't feel good about anything. I don't know what JOK's status is because of his neck injury, and he's your best linebacker. Your best corners had 6 concussions. Your best defensive lineman may ask to get out of here next year. Your best offensive lineman, Joel Bitonio's
may retire.
30, might retire.
Yeah.
Your best wide receiver, okay, that's fine. Your best tight end's injury prone. You don't have a best quarterback. Your best running back, I guess, is Jerome Ford, who's not very good.
Yeah.
He's really a number 2 back. So, there's a ton of holes. This is going to take some time. Now, Washington turned it around quick because they got a special quarterback.
If you find the quarterback,
that makes up for a lot of other things. But what you see once Washington gets Jaden Daniels is like, oh, they had some other talent here, but maybe we didn't realize how good it was because now they had the quarterback to bring it together.
Was there any talk after the Ohio State win about Will Howard?
A fan asked us about that.
Because I watched him completely differently during the last game.
Yeah.
Because I never, ever considered him a draftable option for the Browns.
He has a day 3 grade. Pretty good.
I saw that earlier.
Yeah.
But I got to tell you, now, obviously, he's playing at Ohio State. He has elite talent around him. And I think that's part of the problem why these quarterbacks from Ohio State have failed miserably. He's different, though, in that he is a pocket. He's more a prototypical NFL quarterback than any of these other guys that they've ever had.
Well, Stroud is a pocket.
Stroud's a little different because Stroud was not a runner.
Right, and he's the only one that's had success.
Had some success.
Yeah.
But I watched Will, and I'm looking at deciphering defenses, checking off on receivers. His head's always looking around. He made a throw, the second touchdown to Ibuka, was the seam route.
Couldn't throw better.
Oh my God, it was a complete dot, 40 yards down the field. It couldn't have been, like you said, you couldn't have dropped it to him any better.
Yeah, I don't know I don't know.
So maybe he is a 5th or a 6th round pick that the Browns take a flyer on, and who knows what happens.
I'm drafting a quarterback every year till they find one.
Well, they're going to have to.
Not necessarily first round, but you have to leave every draft with a quarterback.
You've got to fill the quarterback room, and right now I don't know how you fill it.
I don't know if they have any. I mean, I guess Watson's going to be on the roster, but they're probably going to let Jameis go. I would move on from DTR. I don't know if they're going to. So, I think you got to bring in at least 2 quarterbacks next year.
Yeah, I can't imagine they bring DTR back.
I'll fully admit I'm not a draft expert. I don't know enough about the quarterbacks coming in, but I trust the guys who do this for a living. And everybody seems to think there's a lot of question marks with Sanders and Cam Ward.
Yeah.
And I don't think the Browns should draft either of them, even if they have the opportunity.
Well, I'm afraid that they're going to be in the position where they will be able to. Even if they pick 3rd, New England isn't taking a quarterback.
Unless New England trades down.
Yeah,
because
they
somebody
could.
else wants a quarterback.
They could.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Vrabel
interviewed with the Jets.
The Jets, but also there's rumblings. I don't know if it's really been reported. I heard from someone that New England may talk to Vrabel.
Yeah.
If they decide that Mayo isn't their guy.
Yeah. Well, he's a Patriots Hall of Famer.
Well, I think that would. When you talk about revitalizing a fan base that's been in a coma all year, I think that would do it.
That's pretty rough firing a coach after 1 year when you have no talent on that team.
Yeah, but you know what? I mean, I don't know how much you watched them. I didn't watch them enough to really make a full
I watched them
assessment.
the first game of the year when they played the Bengals and they won. I can't believe it.
All my Patriot
Oh, yes. They looked good that game. You're right.
Can't stand Mayo.
But
everyone I know who likes the Patriots.
Yeah, see, I haven't watched them enough specifically, but when I have watched them, I've gotten the vibe that he's not it and he's not going to be it.
They just have no talent, though. I mean, they got a young quarterback.
It's rough.
Yeah.